Hey y'all, it's Tranny Granny again. Well, tonight I wanted to talk about family. If you're a transsexual person, you know that in all probability you will lose some of your family members. I was talking to a friend of mine, a trans friend, this evening, and it concerned her that she's in the middle of her transition and some of her family members have not come around yet. I tried to explain to her that sometimes they do in time once they realize that it's the best thing for you. If they can see that you've gone into the world and you're living your best life, they can see that you're happy. They can see that you're content, and they can see that you fit within that world. Usually, everybody comes around. But that doesn't mean everybody. I have a brother that has not spoken to me in 50 years. He was in agreement that I needed to transition and have my surgery and go on about my life because he figured that's what it was going to take to make me happy. But he thought that I should leave the family and never come back, as if I had died. But the rest of my family, my parents and my grandfather and aunts and uncles, they said absolutely not. Because they knew once it was over with and they seen how well adjusted I was and that how I fit in and I was happy and I was the same person I always was. Because I never was a masculine person. I never was a guy. I never lived as a guy. I mean, I had to dress as one as long as I lived at home until I left home at 18. But that last year, between 17 and 18, I was somewhere in the middle because I was prepared myself. But my mother, she said, well, in time, maybe he'll come around. So my parents lived on a farm, and my brother and his wife built a house right next door to my parents on the farm. So when his babies started coming along, I would go across there with my mother and visit with the babies. I love those babies. Mama thought the more I went, and just for him to see that I was just like anybody else, I wasn't, something that you really need to be ashamed of. But about 6 years into that, I would say, I made the mistake of taking a girlfriend of mine from work to the farm. She was a black girl that I worked with, and she had a 5-year-old daughter that was the same age as one of my nieces. And she had told me that she had always wanted to ride a horse. So I had a horse on the farm. Her name was Beauty. She was still there. All the kids loved to ride her because she was so gentle. She was what they called a pony horse. She was a small horse. So she was great with kids. So I first run it by my parents to see if it was okay. And they said it was fine. And my mother fixed a nice lunch for me and Dawn and her little girl. I can't remember what her name was now. And that afternoon, my nephews and there was one nephew and two nieces. They were all over. The oldest one was 6. And then there was one that was 5 and one that was 4. They all came over and they rode horse with that little girl. They had the best time. And back then, my parents raised rabbits, you know, for meat. So I sent that little girl, a baby rabbit, home. She just went home feeling like she just had the best time. Well, after that, my brother, he put the law down to them. They couldn't ever come back over to Grandma's house if Diane was there. Now, he did call me Diane. That was good. Of course, my name is Diana, but my parents and my family always call me Diane. So, that was the end of that. He wouldn't let his kids come around me anymore. And then eventually, he put the law down to my parents. He said if they did not stop me from coming back there to visit, that he was going to take his family and move. And my dad said, you do whatever you think you got to do. Because I'd like to know which one of your young'uns you would turn away. And of course, later on, my daddy says, you know that Diana be the only one that would give us as much as a glass of water. So he knew the whole situation. But my brother actually left. Rented his house out next door and moved and bought something somewhere else so he wouldn't have to have his kids anywhere around me. They loved me before that happened. And my other nephew and niece that were bigger kids, they knew me before. They were the ones that said you should have always been a girl. I didn't lose them. All other kids still loved me, but he took those away from me. So you will always probably lose somebody. If you don't, you're mighty lucky. But you can't live your life for somebody else. If they don't have enough love and respect for you to want to see you happy, then it's really no love. Good evening. Love you. Tranny Granny signing off.